Today's topic is classes in Python. Let's begin with what is class. When we are talking about class, it's not specific to Python programming language. It applies to most of the other programming languages as well. And it falls under a common paradigm called object-oriented programming. Okay, so let's see what is class. When you talk about human beings, every human being has a common set of properties such as name, gender, occupation, etc. Also, every human will be doing some kind of common activities such as speaking, doing work, or sleeping. So the first set of properties that we covered are called properties in object-oriented programming world. And the activities that human performs are called methods in object-oriented programming. Thus, properties and methods forms a central entity called a class. So here human is a class which has two central components, which is properties and methods. So class is nothing but an abstraction of some entity which contains common set of properties and methods. Okay. What is object then? So object is nothing but a specific instance of a class. For example, for human being, these two are specific instances of the human class, Tom Cruise and Maria Sharapova. They both are human beings. They both have names, gender, occupation. They both do common set of activities such as speaking, doing work, right? But when you talk about specific instance, the behavior varies. Their properties are common. For example, Tom Cruise has a name, Maria Sharapova has a name. But when you look at the actual value, which is the real name, they are different. For example, Tom Cruise's name is Tom Cruise. And in the second case, it is Maria Sharapova. So these names are different, but the properties are common. Okay, now as we know some concepts, let's write a class in Python. As usual, I have pycharm editor open here and I have created a new file called class.py, and here I'm going to write human class. So the way you write class in Python is you use this keyword called class followed by the name of the class. So here our class name is human, and then you will type semicolon, enter. And the first thing that we usually do is we define a special function called init. Now what this function is going to do is it's going to initialize the properties of that particular class when you later on create the instance. Okay, so any human class will have a property called name, right? So now this name should be what? So if you have looked at previous example of various instances, the name could be anything, right? So when you're writing a class, you have to write it in such a way that the properties are passed by the instance, and those properties gets copied over here in this class. So before we go further, I want to clarify a concept of self here. Self here means the class itself. So this is just a syntax on how you define properties. Okay, so just remember, whenever you do underscore init, the first parameter will be self. Okay, and the second parameter would be name. The third parameter will be occupation. I'm just covering name and occupation. You can pass in as many arguments as you need. Okay, so self.name would be name, and self.occupation would be occupation. Okay, so here this guy is an argument to this function. So if you know from the function tutorial, def underscore init is a function, and name and occupation are nothing but a simple arguments to that function, whereas this name and occupation are the properties of this class human. Okay, so for simplicity, I'll just rename this to N and O so that you guys know that these two are different things. Okay, so I'll say N and O. All right, so we are done defining our properties. So we have name and occupation. You can have a long list of properties. So this is how we define all the properties. Okay, now the second step we want to do is we want to define all the methods. Okay, so the first method is do work. Now again, whenever you write any method in Python, the first argument is always self. So you will say doing work. So we saw the example of tennis player and an actor. So based on the occupation of the person, that person will be doing a different work. So first we will do a check on occupation. So if the occupation of this guy is, let's say, tennis player, then what do tennis player do? Well, they play tennis. So self.name plays tennis. Else if the occupation of a person is an actor, then what does an actor do? Well, they generally shoot a film, right? Shoots a film. So this is our first method. Your second method is speaks. Just for the simplicity, I'm just going to print a simple statement here saying that self.name says how are you. Okay, you can have as many methods as you want, but I'm just going to show you two methods, which is speak and work. So these are all my methods and these are my properties. Okay, so I'm done defining my class. This is my entire class. Now let's create some instances of this class. So the first instance is Tom Cruise. So Tom is a human being, and in the bracket self is always passed. So self you don't need to pass. So whenever you are writing an argument here, it is always this one. So just keep in mind that you don't, here in this function there are 3 arguments, but here you don't need to pass 3 arguments. The way Python works is self is always implicitly taken into it, so you will pass these 2 arguments. So the first argument is name. So here for this particular instance of a human being who is Tom Cruise, the name I will pass it as Tom Cruise, and his occupation will be an actor, and I will say Tom.do work. Okay, and then Tom will also speak. Okay, so let's run this program and see what happens. Okay, cool. So when I ran this program, it says Tom Cruise shoots a film. Tom Cruise says how are you. Okay, now the reason it says shoots a film is because we told the system that this particular instance of a human class is an actor, and here in do work function we have a check on occupation saying that if it is an actor, then shoot a film. Okay, now what happens if I create another instance for Maria Sharapova, and I will say again human. So this is the syntax. The way you create the instance of an class is you type in the class name, then you type in all the arguments, Sharapova, and she is a tennis player. Again, Maria.do work and Maria.speaks. Okay, so let's execute this program here and see what happens. Excellent. So for Tom Cruise, it says Tom Cruise shoots a film and he says how are you, whereas for Maria it is saying Maria Sharapova plays tennis and she says how are you. So you just saw how the class and objects work. Okay, remember that whenever you're doing programming and you're writing large programs, it is very important to do programming using object-oriented programming, using classes and objects, because it makes your life much easier. So object-oriented programming, for anyone who is serious about learning programming, it's a very important concept to learn. Okay, so that was a quick overview of classes and objects in Python. Thanks for watching.